And a lot of wonderful companies represented, a lot of different innovations that are represented today. We have Paul from Dapix, and I have these cards here to talk about the Pawel protocol. If anyone hasn't gotten one of these, definitely come up and get one of these addresses. It's going to make crypto much more easily used and just a great wallet situation. Then we've got Holton from Hitachi Vantara. He's going to talk all about the innovation in that great company. And then we've got Garini from Xooa. And he's going to talk all about what Xooa is doing in the enterprise blockchain space. And then of course we've got Steiner from Dish Network. They're unserved of Dish and what they're doing with blockchain and innovation as well. I'm going to turn over the group now and hand off the mic.
All right, thank you so much. So let's kick it off by just going around and having a brief introduction and talk a little bit about what you do at the company and how your company is involved in the blockchain and what innovative things you guys are doing. I can start. I'm from Dapix. Dapix is a startup right here in Denver that is building the Theo protocol. Theo protocol is intended to be an open source, decentralized blockchain that is intended to make sending and receiving cryptocurrency easy. It kind of has three major components. One is a wallet address. So instead of using a long public address, you will be able to just have a very easy, human readable wallet name. And we're currently making those registrations available, and there's a card to get that address for you here, like John mentioned. And also allowing a request functionality so that you can actually request funds from somebody today if you want to settle a bill, or if you want to send somebody an invoice to be paid in crypto, you have to send them an email, include a public address that can be easily intercepted, and then hope that that person copy-pastes that information into their wallet. What we introduce is the ability to request funds from within the wallet. So you just open your wallet, you type in an easy-to-remember name, and the amount of crypto you want to get, and the associated metadata, and the other person just gets that notification in the wallet, just hits accept, and the transaction is executed. No public addresses, no copy pasting, no minute in the middle of that. So we plan to launch it in Q1 of next year. We already have 27 wallets that are participating in our foundation and looking to make crypto sending and receiving easy. Howard, you want to go ahead?
So I'm Howard Holton. I'm the global CTO for Smart City, Smart Spaces, Public Safety, as well as Compliance, Governance, and Legal for Hitachi. It's a huge mouthful, but ultimately, Compliance, Governance, and Legal plays a huge part in government. I meet with Fortune 1000 and government agencies to discuss their IT strategy, data strategy, digital strategy, and digital transformation. What that means is, since a lot of them now have blockchain on their 10K or blockchain on their CTO report as an initiative for the coming year or 2 years, they ask my opinion on what they should do, and I help them evaluate that and come up with a strategy, which 85% of the time is no, don't do it. Mostly because, much like cloud 10 years ago, it just shows up as a buzzword. And they don't really understand it. They've been talked to by some technologist who says blockchain is the solution to everything. I mean, haven't you seen what Bitcoin has done? And they get all excited and don't understand where it's a good use, much less what the inherent risks are. So hopefully we can get into that a little bit today.
Thank you, Howard. My name is Jonathan. I'm the founder of Xooa, an enterprise blockchain startup here in Denver. Really happy to be here. Happy Friday, everyone. We can see that this is a Friday as the crowds are diminishing. And my role, or the Xooa's role in this ecosystem of enterprise blockchain is to reduce the barriers for adoption. And we accomplish that by doing a lot of the hard work that typically anyone, any developer, any technical person or business analyst would need to do when they first approach blockchain. We do this ourselves, and we're offering what is called a tooling layer as a service to make life easier for anyone that want to adopt blockchain. And that came from a real problem that we faced. The team, the technical team that co-founded Xooa with me, faced. We're trying to deploy an enterprise blockchain application where they spend a lot of time in figuring out enterprise blockchain, various DLT engines, evaluating them and understanding the concepts, and then putting those to use. About 6 months were spent on doing that, and I'm sure anyone here who is trying enterprise blockchain is undergoing a similar period. So we thought, hey, this is a much bigger problem to solve. How this community is to shorten that. And yeah, we shortened that. Zach is here, he can show you a demo. We shortened it to about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, right? So that's pretty cool, I think.
It was about 2 minutes.
Well,
Because Zach had to explain what was going on
there you go.
that's right, it was the Wi-Fi. But legitimately, we were making blockchain transactions in under 2 minutes. It was rather impressive from a prototyping and rapid development kind of standpoint.
Yes, so that's our role. And the nice thing in that is that you get to expose to enterprise blockchain startups, and we can talk about innovations that we see, not just necessarily ours.
Can you guys hear me? Do I need a microphone?
All good.
We good? Okay, so yeah, I head up our blockchain efforts at Dish Network. Primary focus is on 5G vendors. That's our focus right now. But we do have a big thriving business that is getting smaller. Pay TV, it's just a natural, going to occur. So blockchain can free up some capex, opex there. We look at that a lot too. Primarily though, not primarily, a big part of what I do is also to kind of shape the culture. We have 1,000+ engineers that, their shifts are their roles are kind of changing. Getting them up to speed and thinking the way that we all do in this community. Put blockchain, DLT technologies in their tool belt so that they can think critically. Is this a scenario for blockchain? They can answer the question, why blockchain, or use it properly at the right time. And then also kind of consolidate. We don't want 100 different chains out there running around. And we also, being a publicly traded company, we have more regulatory concerns about where our data lives. So we do have to kind of wrangle all of that in across the company.
So as you guys can see, we have.
Hello? All right, so as you guys can see, we have a lot of enterprise blockchains experts here in the panel. So what I'd like to do is, back in mid-90s, when the internet, World Wide Web was taking off, I worked for an airline. My boss basically gave me a task. He said, go figure out the internet. And I feel like there's a lot of that happening in blockchain today, and I'm sure many people here are here because they have kind of similar tasks, trying to figure out how blockchain really applies in their business. So I'd like to pose a question to the enterprise experts here. If you guys can talk about how should enterprise think about blockchain? When do I need blockchain? Why do I need blockchain? What kind of questions should I be asking inside the company? We've heard a lot about, you just said in most cases you're advising that projects maybe don't need a blockchain, right? Others say, blockchain is the best thing for everything you do. So how do you navigate that inside of enterprise, and what type of questions you should be asking?
So where I generally start is, what is the compliance and governance requirements of the data that you plan to put on the blockchain? That's the #1 question, hands down. If you were using blockchain for contracts 4 years ago in the EU and GDPR comes out, and now you have to take into consideration rights to be forgotten, and you're not able to do that, you just threw away your blockchain. And that all of that investment and all of that trust that you attempted to build with your customers has now turned against you, right? What happens if something fundamentally changes? How much are you putting on network, right? That's the number one question that I ask. If you can't answer that question, then the answer is no. Are you simply replacing a technology with blockchain to be able to say we have blockchain? If the answer is yes, then the answer is no. We should never be in the business of simply swapping out technology to say we're a thought leader. That's not thought leadership. Right? Thought leadership is how do I transform my business, even a very small piece of it, to do something I could not accomplish yesterday? How do I add efficiency? How do I become, I hate to say it, but how do I become more customer-centric? Do I even know who my customer is? Right? We had a conversation in the hall about Carfax, and Carfax thinks dealerships are their customer, when in fact they ignore that we're their customer. Right? Pharmaceutical companies for a long time thought doctors were their customer. Right? Do you know who your customer is? And am I adding an efficiency? Am I increasing their engagement? Am I bringing them a better service in some way? If the answer is no, why? Right? I generally start with no's and work my way down through blockchain before getting into, okay, fine, now we've determined that blockchain may be a good fit for this. Let's dig into it architecturally and see what are we really trying to enable. And the best places I see to enable blockchain are those where it is smart contracts, frankly, and it's where people get in the way of relatively simplistic, relatively rubber-stamped decision-making processes. Those are clear spots where the implementation is probably going to be simple rather than complex, and the wins can be immediate and can be measured. Right? So those are the places. I do a lot of AI as well, but one of the places that I say is if you can't define a KPI, it doesn't matter if it's possible to achieve it. If you can't define a KPI, no. Sorry, I took way more time than I meant to.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Defining the KPI. I want to see a problem statement, then I want to see what's the juxtaposition of cost between going with blockchain and not, and then if we go with blockchain and it costs more, what am I getting? Or the answer, it could be a greenfield solution, like we could never do this before, now we can. So
I love the wish.
Again,
I define that as the wish, right?
Yeah.
If I can't have done it before, what do I wish I could do that I can't do today? That's a wish.
Yeah.
I love wishes as a possibility because they have the ability to create so much momentum inside an enterprise.
Absolutely.
Right? This is the group that created a wish. This is a group that brought us something we couldn't do before. This is the group, right? And that adds so much confidence. Because I'm not just buying confidence in the individuals that are actually using that application or that enterprise deployment. I'm buying confidence in our ability to bring that to the whole company, whether that's an external me or an internal me.
Even on the wishes, still need to show me.
You still need to do a measure. You
still got to measure
it. KPI associated with it. Right? If I can't define that, it's still a no. It doesn't matter if it's a wish.
So Jonathan, you obviously have an enterprise blockchain solution. What type of questions are you asking your clients to kind of qualify if they even need a blockchain?
Yeah, so I would put myself as probably a much stronger believer than my colleagues here in the application of blockchain at the enterprise. There are two major areas. Right? One is you can definitely do what you do today in a better way using blockchain, and I think it's worth it. Right? The immutability of a database, any database application where trust, immutability is required, it makes sense, right? Now, whether you should replace existing legacy systems or you should take it as part of transformation, that's a different question. And blockchain does enable something completely different that in the enterprise world, and that's along the consortiums. I don't know who were here on the previous presentation of IBM. There were a few examples. Things are just unheard of and not possible without enterprise blockchain. The ability of companies and entities to collaborate and by that increase efficiency, increase the reduce cost, improve the life, improve profitability, improve the products to customers, and this trust enablement and the ability to share or exchange data in a controlled manner is something completely new that we just starting to see the beginning of that. So there are two elements in enterprise blockchain: the immutability and the consortium, right? And not necessarily you have to have them both in all use cases. Sometimes there are offerings that are centralized, that are enabling trust just by the fact that the ledger is immutable, that the data is immutable, that it can be trusted by design, by the technology, that you don't need CPAs to audit and that multiple parties can exchange, and the consortium. So those are the major use cases that we see in blockchain. And we see them across everywhere, right? In health, in voting, in supply chain.
So let's talk about this. Let's take this a little bit deeper. I'd like to ask each one of you to kind of name an example of a perfect application of blockchain in an enterprise environment. It could be your company, it could be your client, in your case, Jonathan, or it could be anything you've seen out there.
So, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tracking legal data inside a corporation is a very complex process currently and relatively broken. It's basically, we have an Excel spreadsheet whereby we keep track of data. Right? Anyone that does evidence tracking would laugh at that. Surprisingly, blockchain is an absolutely perfect example of being able to add a trust layer to something that doesn't have a trust layer today in an automated fashion. And so using blockchain to tag and track data that's considered evidence because it's material to an investigation or a case is a phenomenal, perfect use of blockchain. Would be relatively easy to do because all you're really keeping track of is some minor information about the data, its location, its file name, and a hash would probably be plenty for most enterprise legal teams and would add a tremendous amount of value to that legal team.
And how and why couldn't that be accomplished in a database?
It's the lack of trust, really, and the ability to exchange it with a third party. So most corporations, when it moves from an internal investigation to a piece of litigation, they'll use more than one third party. And so you want to be able to track it when you turn it over to all of those third parties, and if the data happens to come back, you want to be able to track it as well. So it's a really good use of blockchain, especially when you start getting into those pieces. If you've got GDPR concerns or any of the GDPR photocopies, it'd also be a really good way to allow them to participate, your third-party data processors, the third parties, in the case that you had to take action or execute against that data.
Jonathan?
Yeah, so I like why can you not use others? I mean, that's a typical objection of new technologies. In the technology space for 25 years, I remember these objections when SQL databases replaced the textual databases, and then when NoSQL came. I think in general, it's true that you could always stretch an existing technology to accomplish a technical goal or a business goal. But if you have something better to accomplish it, and it has inherited advantages, why not to use it, right? So the question is not why yes, it's why not, right? If it's better, why not to use it? So it will be a process, and it's not worthwhile changing legacy systems just for the sake of moving to blockchain, and I agree with Howard on that, but when you transform that, and there are other reasons for you to do it, you might as well do it on blockchain. That's on the database side, right? And then on the consortium side, which is a completely different, just something completely different, right? It's just not the database is something in the backend, right? The consensus, the ability for sharing, for exchanging information, all of that. I mean, this will just make a better world, right? It will make the world more efficient. This trust enablement by design or by the technology rather than by humans is a big deal. It's a big deal in the enterprise world.
So do you have any specific example of perfect application of blockchain in an enterprise?
Perfect application. I mean, one of the we have customers that come to us on voting and health records, and we have customers that that are coming for us on marketplaces, for example. And the blockchain is an attribute, it's not the goal on its own for those. The voting, for example, and I don't know how much of you guys tried the voting application here, that we spent in about a couple of hours in the morning of the show when John asked us to. But you can do digital voting not on blockchain, but when you do it on top of blockchain, it's nobody's messing with it, right? You can trust that, right? So that's really nice. Yeah, so there will always be the people, okay, yeah, but maybe they messed with the input that gets into it, and then there's this off-chain versus on-chain discussions and all of that, but it's still substantially better than the alternative.
Rob, how about yourself? Do you have any examples, maybe what you guys do at Dish?
Yeah, not to talk about that so much, but I think that the best integrations are the ones you don't know about, that I don't know about. These technologies are opening up the accessibility to markets that smaller players just didn't have access to. You look at banking right now, and I see all these great new banking solutions. I don't know who's using blockchain, who's not, but I know there's more options. I know as a consumer, I'm in a better spot. What technology is fueling this acceleration in that space? I don't know. I assume it's blockchain, because why wouldn't it be, right? But yeah, my mom's not going to use this technology in the next ever. So it's going to have to be when she doesn't know she's using it.
That's very good. I agree.
All right. Let me ask you about the next step. So once you figure out the use case and you figure out, okay, well, it will work. For me, I definitely need a blockchain. It's a wish I can now fulfill. How do you go through the process of deciding which blockchain technology you're supposed to use? So I've seen those that have been here, the IBM, I think it was the IBM, or maybe it was the other one, where we talked about the ducks, how many different ducks are out there.
IBM,
Yeah.
presentation.
Exactly. So there's a lot of ducks out there in terms of open source blockchain platforms, or going with a company like yours, Jonathan, or probably hundreds and hundreds of others. How would you help somebody who's trying to implement blockchain at their company to make the decision as to which technology platform, which blockchain platform they should start with?
Can I take that? It's just right around me. Could you guys hear me with the microphone? That's great. All right. So that's a great question. That's one of the things that we struggle. And Xooa is the only platform today that allows you to deploy your application and swap DLTs. So we support 4 DLTs, distributed ledger technology, Hyperledger Fabric, that was presented here before. That was our first one. Then we added Ethereum. Now we're working on adding R3, Corda, and so am I pronouncing it correctly? Sati.
It's a Hyperledger project.
Yes. So that's on our pipeline to add as the last one. So you come on Xooa, and I encourage everyone, you could log in using, you could log in now, you don't need to download anything. And you go into custom smart contract, you select your engine, and we offer you a few samples, and you can deploy that. And then there's an API gateway, that it's the same API gateway that allows you to swap those DLT engines, and you can compare. Now, I have an opinion about because we're into it and we see the differences, which is more suited to enterprise blockchain. I would not use this stage to recommend one versus the other, but we allow people to experiment and see this from themselves.
All right.
So I would say trust, right? Blockchain is about trust, but also think about that decision. I have to trust whatever I pick, whoever I pick, to support me, to have my back, to fill in the empty spaces in the people that work for me that are going to support that thing. Right? I came from the CIO seat before I moved over here to the dark side. And everything was about, how do I get support when something goes wrong? Right? How do I not create a bus lottery situation? Are you guys familiar with that one? I get hit by a bus or win the lottery. Right? If I've got an employee that goes, I'm doing Ethereum, because that's what I'm going to do. They develop this great application on their laptop. They, deploy it, it's production, it's the greatest thing I've ever seen, and Google goes, hey, we've heard about that thing, we'd like to offer you 3 times your existing pay, which I've actually seen happen. Would you like to come over and deploy that to us? And they leave, I now have no trust in that application. Right? Same with a vendor. If I look to a company, and no offense to you guys because you're both startups, but I have to look at what is your financial model, what is your exit strategy, are you looking to be acquired, who's the likely acquisition target for that thing? I have to take those things into consideration. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do it, but it does mean I have to think about those things. I have to trust that whatever that decision is going to be made, either that I'm going to make is the right one, or if you're a practitioner and you have to sell it up the chain, take trust into consideration. How do I convince my boss, my leadership, that this is the right place to place their trust? If you don't think about that and you just think about the cool technology aspect of it, I promise you it won't end up the way you thought. You'll end up handing your idea over to IBM and they will deploy it, or Accenture, or me, or someone else.
And that's what we do.
And
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. As we do vendor selection, it's all about the people. I don't care if you have the greatest technology in the world, you're one of the smartest people I've ever met. If your last job was a barista, I'll keep talking to you, and we'll keep developing your career and see where you go. But I need people that understand how existing industry works, how telco works, and how the world operates, and they will innovate on top of that. And you can trust that experience.
100%.
All right, so one of the
I think we're running around.
we have time for questions.
Sorry?
I think we're done.
Okay.
Your guys are done.
So,
Thanks so much.
we've been stopped, we've been hooked, so thanks everybody.
Great job to that panel, and I really appreciate all the insights too. You know, deploying enterprise blockchain is definitely a challenge, and you got to work with the right vendors and the right solutions to make it happen. So, appreciate it, everyone.
Yeah, please get any easier. Right? There are more players, not fewer players. More disruption. And that's
That is one. That's a main point.
that's one. Over again, it's easier to enterprise. But that provides a fantastic
Yeah, we have
really like it now.
Just like we were discussing
You're telling me there's one James or John? James. John is all presentation. John is right there. This is Mr. John Walsh.
I used to work here 20 years ago. Let me introduce you to Mr. Holton.
Different perspectives on blockchain as well. So it was good. I gotta talk to him at some point. Later on. I thought that was a good job. Posting Xooa.
We give you a head nod if you move it ahead.
Well, thank you.
It's great doing startups. We had to go to yeah, definitely. Anyway, thanks for coming.